Elena Carter stood at the window of her small apartment in Portland, Oregon, watching the rain cascade down the glass. It was a typical gray day in the city, where the clouds hung low and heavy, mirroring her mood. At 22, she felt a mixture of excitement and uncertainty about her life. College was supposed to be a time of exploration and self-discovery, yet she often found herself feeling isolated, especially in her own home. Her stepmother, Vivian Carter, had moved into their lives 5 years ago after marrying Elena's father. Vivian was everything Elena was not: poised, confident, and successful. As the owner of a thriving art gallery downtown, she commanded attention wherever she went. People admired her elegance and charisma, but to Elena, she was a stranger who had taken her father away from her. The dynamic between them had always been strained. Elena felt overshadowed by Vivian's larger-than-life presence. Elena sighed and turned away from the window. She glanced at her reflection in the mirror: messy hair, dark circles under her eyes from late-night studying, and felt a pang of disappointment. She had always been the quiet one, preferring books and art to social gatherings. But deep down, she longed for connection, for someone to truly see her. The sound of heels clicking against the hardwood floor interrupted her thoughts. Vivian entered the room with an air of authority that made Elena's stomach twist. Dressed in a tailored blazer and stylish trousers, she looked like she had just stepped out of a fashion magazine. Her dark hair was pulled back in a sleek bun, emphasizing her sharp features. "Good morning, Elena," Vivian said with a warm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I hope you're ready for the gallery opening tonight." Elena forced a smile in return. "Of course. I wouldn't miss it." "Great. I think it'll be a wonderful opportunity for you to meet some interesting people." Vivian's tone was encouraging but also carried an undertone of expectation. "Right," Elena replied, feeling the pressure mount. The thought of mingling with art enthusiasts and professionals made her anxious. She preferred the comfort of solitude over small talk with strangers. As Vivian continued to discuss the evening's plans, Elena's mind began to wander. She couldn't help but notice how effortlessly Vivian navigated through life. Her confidence, her charisma, all qualities that seemed so distant from Elena's own reality. There was a part of Elena that admired Vivian deeply, yet another part felt resentment for the way she seemed to effortlessly take over every aspect of their lives. Later that day, as Elena prepared for the gallery opening, she stood in front of her closet, trying on different outfits. She wanted to impress Vivian but struggled to find something that reflected who she truly was. After several attempts, she settled on a simple black dress that hugged her figure just right. When they arrived at the gallery that evening, Elena felt an electric buzz in the air, an energy that came from creativity and passion swirling around them. The walls were adorned with vibrant paintings and sculptures that seemed to pulse with life. Despite her nerves, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of excitement as they stepped inside. Vivian immediately took charge, greeting guests with warmth and charm while introducing Elena as if she were showcasing a prized piece of art. "This is my stepdaughter, Elena," she said proudly to one group after another. Elena smiled politely but felt like an accessory rather than an individual. As the night wore on, she found herself retreating to a quieter corner of the gallery where she could observe rather than participate. It was there that she caught Vivian's eye. Across the room, their gazes locked for a moment, a fleeting connection that sent an unexpected rush through Elena's chest. Vivian smiled softly before returning to her conversation with an artist. Elena shook off the feeling and focused on examining one of the paintings nearby, a stunning abstract piece filled with swirling colors that seemed to echo her own tumultuous emotions. She lost herself in its depths until she heard footsteps approaching. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Vivian's voice broke through her reverie. Elena turned to face her stepmother again. "Yeah, it really is," she replied honestly. Vivian stepped closer, studying both the painting and Elena's expression. "Art has a way of reflecting our inner selves," she mused thoughtfully. "Sometimes we don't even realize how much we need it until we see it." Elena nodded slowly, feeling as though Vivian was speaking directly to her heart rather than just about art. "I guess it helps us understand our feelings." Vivian smiled knowingly before glancing back at the crowd. "You have such depth within you, Elena," she said softly. "I wish you would let it shine more often." Elena felt warmth flood through her at those words, an unexpected compliment from someone whose opinion mattered so much to her. For a brief moment, their connection felt real and profound. As the evening continued and laughter echoed around them, Elena couldn't shake off the strange feeling that something was shifting between them, a tension that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Later that night, as they drove home through the rain-soaked streets of Portland, Elena sat quietly in the passenger seat, lost in thought. The city lights blurred into streaks as they passed by, each one seemed to represent a different possibility for what lay ahead. Vivian broke the silence as they approached their apartment complex. "I'm glad you came tonight," she said genuinely. "Me too," Elena replied softly. For just an instant, their eyes met again, an unspoken understanding lingering in the air between them before they reached their destination. As they parked and stepped out into the cool night air, Elena felt an unfamiliar flutter in her chest, a mix of hope and fear about what tomorrow might bring. The following weekend, a storm swept through Portland, drenching the city in relentless rain. Elena sat curled up on her couch, wrapped in a soft blanket, her textbook spread out in front of her. The rhythmic sound of raindrops against the window created a soothing backdrop as she tried to focus on her studies. But her mind kept drifting back to the gallery opening and the unexpected connection she had felt with Vivian. Just as she was about to dive back into her reading, her phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was a text from Vivian. "Elena, I was thinking we should spend some time together this weekend. Just us. What do you think?" Elena's heart raced at the idea. She had spent so much time feeling distant from Vivian, and now the thought of being alone with her sparked a mix of excitement and anxiety. After a moment of hesitation, she typed back, "That sounds great. What do you have in mind?" "Let's go to the family cabin. It'll be cozy, and we can relax away from everything," Vivian replied. Elena felt a thrill at the prospect. The cabin was a place filled with memories, weekend getaways with her father before he passed away, laughter echoing through the woods. It was a sanctuary that felt both comforting and bittersweet. "Okay, I'll pack some things," Elena responded, trying to suppress her enthusiasm. A couple of hours later, they were on the road, driving through the rain-soaked landscape that surrounded Portland. The trees stood tall and proud, their leaves glistening with moisture. Elena glanced over at Vivian, who was focused on the road ahead, her expression calm yet contemplative. "Thank you for suggesting this," Elena said after a while, breaking the silence. Vivian turned to her briefly, a smile touching her lips. "I thought it would be nice for us to unwind and reconnect. It's been too long since we've had some quality time together." Elena nodded, feeling a flutter of hope at the idea of bridging the gap between them. As they drove deeper into the woods, the rain began to lighten, and patches of blue sky peeked through the clouds. When they finally arrived at the cabin, Elena felt a wave of nostalgia wash over her. The rustic wooden structure stood proudly among towering pines, its windows glowing warmly against the encroaching dusk. They unloaded their bags and settled in, lighting a fire in the fireplace that crackled to life with comforting warmth. As they sat together on the couch, sipping hot cocoa and sharing stories about their week, Elena felt an ease settle between them that had been missing for so long. They laughed about silly moments from their pasts, Vivian's first disastrous attempt at cooking and Elena's awkward teenage years, and for the first time in ages, Elena felt like she was truly getting to know Vivian as a person rather than just as her stepmother. After dinner, they decided to play a board game that Elena had found tucked away in a cupboard. As they competed against each other, their playful banter filled the room with laughter. The atmosphere was lighthearted and fun, yet there was an undercurrent of something deeper, a connection that seemed to grow stronger with every passing moment. As night fell and darkness enveloped the cabin, they moved closer together on the couch to keep warm by the fire. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows across their faces, illuminating Vivian's features in a way that made Elena's heart race unexpectedly. "Have you ever thought about how strange life can be?" Vivian asked suddenly, breaking through Elena's thoughts. "What do you mean?" Elena replied curiously. "I mean how we end up where we are, who we love and who we lose," Vivian said softly. "It's all so unpredictable." Elena nodded slowly, feeling an ache in her chest as she thought about her father's passing and how it had reshaped their lives. "Yeah, it can be hard sometimes." Vivian looked at her intently for a moment before speaking again. You know you can talk to me about anything, right? I may not be your mother by blood, but I care about you deeply. The sincerity in Vivian's voice struck Elena profoundly. She felt an overwhelming urge to share everything, the confusion she felt about her identity and her growing feelings toward Vivian herself, but fear held her back. Thank you, Elena managed to say instead, grateful for Vivian's openness but unsure how to express what lay beneath. As they continued playing the game, Elena noticed how Vivian's laughter seemed to resonate within her, a melody that stirred something deep inside. Each shared glance lingered longer than it should have, each accidental touch sent shivers down Elena's spine. Eventually, they decided to call it a night. As they made their way upstairs to their respective rooms, Vivian taking the master suite while Elena occupied one of the guest rooms, Elena couldn't shake off an unsettling feeling that something significant was brewing between them. Lying in bed later that night, staring up at the ceiling while rain pattered against the roof, Elena replayed every moment from their day together, the laughter, the shared stories, and felt an undeniable pull toward Vivian that both thrilled and terrified her. What would happen if she allowed herself to explore this connection? Would it change everything? As sleep began to take hold of her thoughts, one thing became clear. This weekend could be more than just time spent together. It could be an opportunity for transformation, a chance to uncover truths hidden beneath layers of fear and uncertainty. The next morning, Elena awoke to the gentle sound of rain tapping against the window. The cozy cabin felt like a world apart from her usual life, a sanctuary where she could breathe and think without the pressures of college or social expectations. She stretched lazily, feeling the warmth of the blankets around her, but as her mind began to clear, she felt a flutter of anxiety about the day ahead. After a quick shower, Elena dressed in comfortable clothes, a soft sweater and jeans, and made her way downstairs. The smell of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, drawing her toward the kitchen. Vivian was already there, standing by the counter with her back to Elena, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. Good morning. Vivian turned with a bright smile that lit up her face. I hope you're ready for some pancakes. I found a recipe online that I think you'll love. Elena returned the smile, feeling a warmth spread through her at Vivian's enthusiasm. That sounds amazing. I'm starving. As they prepared breakfast together, the atmosphere was filled with laughter and light conversation. They joked about their culinary skills, Elena's infamous burnt toast and Vivian's overly ambitious soufflé attempt from years ago. It felt easy and natural, like they were old friends rather than stepmother and stepdaughter. Once breakfast was ready, they settled at the small wooden table by the window. The rain continued to fall outside, creating a cozy ambiance as they enjoyed their meal. Elena savored each bite of the fluffy pancakes topped with fresh berries and maple syrup, feeling grateful for this moment of connection. After breakfast, Vivian suggested they go for a walk in the woods surrounding the cabin. It'll be refreshing. Plus, I love how the forest looks when it's raining, she said with excitement. Elena hesitated for a moment but then agreed. There was something invigorating about being outdoors, even in the rain. They grabbed their jackets and headed out into the misty embrace of nature. The forest was alive with sounds, the rustle of leaves, distant bird calls, and the steady rhythm of raindrops falling onto foliage. As they walked along the winding path, Elena felt a sense of peace wash over her. The air was fresh and cool against her skin, and she found herself enjoying Vivian's company more than she had anticipated. Look at how beautiful everything is, Vivian said, gesturing to a cluster of vibrant green ferns glistening with moisture. Nature has a way of rejuvenating us. Elena nodded in agreement but couldn't help but notice how close they were walking together. Their shoulders brushed occasionally as they navigated through the narrow trail, sending tiny sparks of electricity through Elena's body each time. Do you come here often? Elena asked, trying to keep her mind focused on anything other than how much she wanted to reach out and hold Vivian's hand. Not as much as I'd like, Vivian replied thoughtfully. Life gets busy, but this place holds so many memories for me, both good and bad. Elena looked at her stepmother curiously. What do you mean? Vivian paused for a moment as if weighing her words carefully. When I first came here after marrying your father, it felt like an escape, a chance to start anew. But I also remember feeling lost sometimes, like I was trying to fill shoes that were too big for me. Elena sensed vulnerability in Vivian's voice that she hadn't noticed before. It opened a door to understanding that had previously felt locked tight between them. I think everyone feels that way at some point, Elena said quietly. I often feel lost too, especially now with school and figuring out who I am. Vivian turned to face Elena fully, her expression earnest. You're still so young, Elena. It's okay not to have everything figured out right now. Just know that you have people who care about you, who want to help you find your way. Elena felt a lump form in her throat at Vivian's words. She wanted to share everything, the confusion about her identity and those feelings that had begun to blossom between them, but fear held her back yet again. Instead, she simply nodded, appreciating Vivian's support more than she could express. As they continued walking deeper into the woods, they stumbled upon a small clearing where wildflowers bloomed despite the rain-soaked earth, a splash of color against the gray backdrop. They stopped to admire it together. Look at how resilient these flowers are, Vivian remarked softly. They thrive even in harsh conditions. Elena watched as raindrops clung to the petals like tiny jewels glimmering in the dim light. It's beautiful, she said genuinely. Vivian stepped closer to Elena, their shoulders brushing again as they both leaned down to get a better look at the flowers. In that moment, time seemed to stand still. Elena could feel Vivian's warmth radiating beside her. Just like these flowers, Vivian continued softly, you have your own beauty and strength within you. Elena's heart raced at those words, an affirmation that felt almost intimate in its sincerity. She looked up at Vivian just as their eyes met again, an electric current surged between them that made Elena's breath hitch. The world around them faded away as they stood there, two souls connected by something deeper than mere familial ties. It was an unspoken understanding that hung in the air like tension before a storm. But just as quickly as it began, Vivian broke away from their gaze and stepped back slightly, clearing her throat awkwardly as if shaking off an invisible weight. Let's head back before we get too soaked, she suggested lightly. Elena nodded silently but felt a mix of disappointment and exhilaration coursing through her veins as they turned back toward the path leading home. The rest of their walk was filled with casual chatter about mundane topics, what movies they wanted to watch later or what snacks they should prepare, but underneath it all lingered an undeniable shift in their relationship. Once inside the cabin again, they shed their wet jackets and settled back into their cozy routine by the fire. As evening approached and darkness enveloped them once more, Elena felt anticipation building within her, a longing for deeper connection that both thrilled and terrified her. Later that night while lying in bed once again listening to the rain outside, Elena pondered everything that had happened during their walk, the shared moments that felt charged with possibility, and wondered if perhaps this weekend would lead them both toward something new and transformative. The following day dawned bright and clear, a welcome change after the stormy weather of the previous days. Elena awoke to the sound of birds chirping outside her window, a cheerful melody that lifted her spirits. She stretched and took a moment to appreciate the tranquility of the cabin, feeling a sense of peace that had eluded her for so long. After getting dressed, she made her way downstairs, where she found Vivian already in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. The aroma of sizzling bacon and freshly brewed coffee filled the air, making Elena's stomach rumble in anticipation. Good morning. Vivian greeted her with a bright smile. I hope you're ready for a hearty breakfast. Elena returned the smile, feeling warmth spread through her at Vivian's enthusiasm. Absolutely. It smells amazing. As they ate together, the conversation flowed easily between them. They talked about their plans for the day. Vivian suggested they explore some nearby hiking trails and take advantage of the beautiful weather. Elena eagerly agreed, feeling a thrill at the idea of spending more time outdoors with her stepmother. After breakfast, they gathered their gear, water bottles, snacks, and sturdy shoes, and set off toward the trails. The sun shone brightly overhead as they walked side by side, laughter punctuating their conversation. Elena felt lighter than she had in ages, enjoying Vivian's company without any of the usual tension that had characterized their relationship. The trail wound through lush greenery, with towering trees providing dappled shade overhead. As they hiked deeper into the forest, Elena found herself opening up more to Vivian about her life, her struggles with school, her dreams for the future, and even her insecurities about fitting in. I sometimes feel like I'm just going through the motions, Elena admitted as they paused to take in a breathtaking view of a nearby valley. Like I'm not really living my life but rather following a script that someone else wrote for me. Vivian nodded thoughtfully. I understand that feeling all too well. When I first started my gallery, I was so focused on meeting everyone's expectations that I lost sight of what truly mattered to me. Elena looked at Vivian with newfound admiration. How did you find your way back? It took time and courage, Vivian replied. I had to learn to listen to my own voice instead of trying to please others. It was liberating but also terrifying. As they continued their hike, Elena felt inspired by Vivian's journey. There was something about their conversation that felt different, more profound and intimate than anything they had shared before. The air between them crackled with an unspoken connection that Elena couldn't ignore. After a couple of hours on the trail, they found a secluded spot by a small stream where they decided to take a break. They sat on a large rock overlooking the water, letting their feet dangle above the cool surface. This is perfect, Elena said softly, taking in the beauty around them, the sunlight dancing on the water and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. Vivian smiled at her, and for a moment, everything felt suspended in time. The world faded away until it was just the two of them, two women seeking solace and understanding in each other's company. As they chatted about everything and nothing at all, Elena couldn't shake off the feeling that something significant was shifting between them. The way Vivian looked at her, the warmth in her gaze, made Elena's heart race with possibilities she had never dared to consider before. Suddenly, Vivian turned serious. Elena, she began hesitantly, I want you to know that whatever you're feeling right now, it's okay. You don't have to hide anything from me. Elena's breath caught in her throat as she met Vivian's gaze. The intensity in those words sent shivers down her spine. It felt like an invitation to explore uncharted territory, a chance to confront everything that had been building between them. I don't know how to explain it, Elena stammered, her heart pounding wildly against her chest. But I feel like there's something more between us, something I can't quite put into words. Vivian leaned closer, her expression softening as she searched Elena's eyes for understanding. You're not alone in feeling this way, she said gently. I've felt it too. The admission hung heavily in the air between them, a fragile truth that seemed both exhilarating and terrifying. In that moment, time stood still as they both grappled with what lay ahead. Elena could feel heat rising to her cheeks as she processed Vivian's words. She wanted to reach out, to close the distance between them, but uncertainty held her back like an invisible barrier. Just then, a sudden rustle from nearby startled them both. A deer emerged from behind a cluster of trees before darting away into the underbrush. The moment shattered like glass around them. Vivian laughed lightly as she broke away from their intense gaze. Well, that was unexpected, she exclaimed with relief. Elena chuckled nervously but felt an ache of longing deep within her, a desire to return to that moment of vulnerability they had shared just seconds before. After resting for a while longer by the stream, they decided it was time to head back along the trail. The walk back felt different. There was an unspoken tension lingering between them now, a mix of excitement and fear about what might come next. When they finally reached the cabin again, dusk was settling over the landscape like a soft blanket. They prepared dinner together in comfortable silence, each lost in their thoughts about what had transpired earlier. As they sat down to eat by candlelight later that evening, Elena felt both nervous and hopeful about what lay ahead. The possibilities were endless yet daunting at the same time. After dinner, they decided to watch a movie together curled up on the couch by the fireplace again. It was cozy and familiar, a perfect end to an unforgettable day. But as they settled into each other's warmth beneath soft blankets while laughter echoed from the screen before them, Elena couldn't shake off an overwhelming sense of anticipation building inside her, a yearning for something more than just friendship or familial bonds. That night would mark another turning point in their relationship, a step toward exploring feelings neither had fully acknowledged until now. The next morning, Elena awoke to the soft light filtering through the curtains of the cabin. She lay still for a moment, allowing the warmth of the sun to wash over her, but her mind was already racing with thoughts of the previous day. The conversation by the stream replayed in her head, each word echoing like a heartbeat. She felt a mix of excitement and trepidation about what lay ahead. After getting dressed, Elena made her way downstairs, where she found Vivian in the kitchen again. The smell of coffee filled the air, and Elena felt a rush of comfort at the sight of her stepmother moving gracefully around the space. Vivian looked up and smiled, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "Good morning. I hope you're ready for another adventure today," Vivian said cheerfully. Elena nodded, her stomach fluttering at the thought. "What do you have in mind?" "I thought we could explore some art galleries in town," Vivian suggested. "There's a new exhibit opening that I think you'll love." Elena felt a thrill at the idea. Art had always been a passion for her, and spending time with Vivian in that setting felt like an invitation to dive deeper into their connection. "That sounds perfect," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady despite the excitement bubbling inside her. After breakfast, they headed into town, the drive filled with easy conversation and laughter. The sun shone brightly overhead, casting a golden glow on everything around them. As they arrived at the gallery, Elena felt a rush of anticipation. It was one of those moments where everything seemed to align perfectly. Inside, the gallery was alive with color and creativity. Vibrant paintings adorned the walls, and sculptures dotted the space like silent guardians of expression. Elena wandered through the exhibits, absorbing each piece while Vivian moved beside her, sharing insights about the artists and their work. "This one speaks to me," Vivian said, stopping in front of an abstract painting filled with swirling colors that seemed to dance across the canvas. "It captures chaos and beauty all at once." Elena studied it closely, feeling drawn to its energy. "I see what you mean. It's like there's a story hidden within all those layers." Vivian turned to her with an approving smile. "Exactly. Art can evoke such powerful emotions, it's like a window into someone else's soul." As they continued exploring the gallery, Elena felt a sense of freedom wash over her. She was no longer just Vivian's stepdaughter, she was an artist in her own right, discovering her voice alongside someone who understood her passion. After spending hours immersed in creativity, they decided to take a break at a nearby cafe. They settled at a small table outside under an awning as the sun began to dip lower in the sky. Over steaming cups of coffee and pastries, their conversation flowed effortlessly. They discussed their favorite artists and shared stories about their own creative endeavors. Vivian talked about her early days as an art student while Elena opened up about her aspirations to become an illustrator. "I've always admired your ability to express yourself through your art," Vivian said sincerely. "You have such talent." Elena felt warmth spread through her at those words. It was more than just praise, it was validation from someone she deeply respected. "Thank you," Elena replied softly. "I've been trying to find my own style, but sometimes I feel lost." Vivian leaned forward slightly, her expression earnest. "It's okay to feel that way. Every artist goes through phases of uncertainty. What matters is that you keep creating and exploring." Elena nodded, feeling inspired by Vivian's encouragement. As they sat there together, two women bound by shared passions, the air between them crackled with something unspoken yet palpable. After finishing their coffee, they decided to stroll through a nearby park before heading back to the cabin. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows on the ground as they walked side by side along winding paths lined with blooming flowers. As they reached a secluded area near a pond surrounded by lush greenery, Elena paused to take in the beauty around them. The scene felt almost magical, the sunlight glinting off the water's surface and birds flitting overhead created an atmosphere filled with serenity. "This place is stunning," Elena said softly. Vivian stepped closer beside her, their shoulders brushing again as they admired the view together. "It really is. Moments like this remind me how important it is to appreciate life's simple pleasures." Elena turned to look at Vivian then, her heart racing as she caught sight of the softness in her stepmother's eyes. In that moment, everything else faded away, it was just them standing together in perfect harmony. "Vivian," Elena began hesitantly but found herself struggling for words. "Yes," Vivian prompted gently. "I don't want this weekend to end," Elena admitted quietly, feeling vulnerable yet brave enough to voice what had been building inside her. Vivian's gaze softened further as she took a step closer. "Neither do I," she confessed softly. The tension between them thickened as they stood there, two souls drawn together by something deeper than mere family ties, a connection that transcended boundaries and expectations. In that moment of honesty and vulnerability, Elena felt an overwhelming urge to reach out, to close whatever distance remained between them, but fear held her back once more. Just then, a group of children ran past them laughing joyfully. Their carefree energy broke through the intensity of the moment like a splash of cold water. Elena chuckled nervously as she watched them go by. It was as if reality had reminded them both of their responsibilities, the world outside their bubble waiting for them once again. "Shall we head back?" Vivian suggested lightly but with an undertone that hinted at their earlier conversation still lingering between them. "Yeah, let's go," Elena replied reluctantly but feeling hopeful that perhaps this wasn't over, not yet anyway. As they walked back toward their car under fading sunlight, Elena couldn't shake off that feeling, that something significant was on the horizon for both of them, a chance to explore uncharted territory together if only they could find the courage to embrace it fully. The next morning, Elena awoke with a sense of anticipation that buzzed in the air around her. The sun streamed through the window, casting golden rays across the room, but her mind was elsewhere, on the moments she had shared with Vivian over the past few days. The connection between them had deepened in ways she never imagined possible, and now she felt both exhilarated and terrified about what lay ahead. After getting dressed, she made her way downstairs. The cabin was quiet, save for the soft sounds of nature outside. As she entered the kitchen, she found Vivian already preparing breakfast. The sight of her stepmother, focused and graceful, sent a rush of warmth through Elena. "Good morning." Vivian looked up with a bright smile that lit up her face. "I hope you're ready for our last day here." Elena's heart sank slightly at the reminder that their weekend was coming to an end. "I am, but I wish we could stay longer," she admitted, trying to keep her voice steady. Vivian paused for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "Me too. This weekend has been special." They enjoyed breakfast together in comfortable silence, each lost in their thoughts about the days they had spent together. Afterward, they decided to take one last walk in the woods before packing up to head back to Portland. As they strolled along the familiar path, Elena felt a mix of emotions swirling within her, gratitude for the time they had shared and sadness at the thought of returning to reality. The forest was alive with sounds, birds chirped overhead, and a gentle breeze rustled through the leaves. It felt like a world apart from everything else. "Let's stop by that clearing we found yesterday," Vivian suggested suddenly. Elena nodded eagerly. She remembered how beautiful it had been and how they had shared that moment of connection by the stream. When they reached the clearing, Elena's breath caught in her throat at its beauty. The wildflowers swayed gently in the breeze, vibrant colors against the backdrop of green. "This place feels magical," Elena said softly as they stepped into the clearing. Vivian smiled as she took in the scene around them. "It really does. Nature has a way of bringing out our true selves." Elena turned to look at Vivian, feeling an overwhelming urge to express everything that had been building inside her over the weekend. "Vivian, I need to talk to you about something." Vivian met her gaze, her expression shifting to one of curiosity and concern. "What is it?" Taking a deep breath, Elena gathered her courage. "I've been feeling something between us, something more than just family ties, and it scares me because I don't know what it means." Vivian's eyes widened slightly as she processed Elena's words. I feel it too," she admitted quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. The admission hung in the air between them like a fragile thread connecting two hearts. In that moment, everything felt suspended, the world around them faded away as they stood on the precipice of something new and unknown. "What do we do about it?" Elena asked tentatively, her heart racing as she searched Vivian's eyes for answers. Vivian stepped closer, their proximity sending a jolt of electricity through Elena's body. "I think we need to be honest with ourselves," she replied softly. "This connection is real, and we shouldn't ignore it." Elena felt a rush of relief mixed with excitement at Vivian's words. It was as if a door had swung open wide before them, a chance to explore their feelings without fear or judgment. "But what if this changes everything?" Elena questioned, vulnerability creeping into her voice. "Change can be scary," Vivian said gently, "but it can also lead to growth and understanding. We have to decide what we want together." Elena nodded slowly, feeling both terrified and exhilarated at the possibilities ahead. She took another step closer to Vivian, their faces mere inches apart now, she could see every detail, the warmth in Vivian's eyes and the way her lips curved into a soft smile. In that moment of intimacy, Elena felt an overwhelming urge to bridge whatever distance remained between them. She reached out hesitantly and took Vivian's hand in hers. It felt right, natural, as if they were meant to be connected this way all along. Vivian squeezed her hand gently, a silent affirmation that spoke volumes without needing words. "I want this," Elena said firmly, looking into Vivian's eyes with determination. "I want us to explore this connection, whatever it may be." Vivian smiled brightly then, a radiant expression filled with warmth and understanding. "So do I." With that unspoken agreement hanging between them like an invisible thread binding their hearts together, Elena leaned forward slowly until their lips met in a tentative kiss, a soft brush that ignited every nerve ending within her. The world around them faded away. Completely as they kissed again, deeper this time, with an urgency fueled by all the emotions they had kept hidden for so long. When they finally pulled away from each other breathless and wide-eyed, Elena couldn't help but smile at Vivian, the woman who had become so much more than just her stepmother over these past few days. "I can't believe we just did that," Elena said breathlessly. Vivian chuckled softly, brushing a strand of hair behind Elena's ear. "Neither can I, but it feels right." They stood there together in that beautiful clearing surrounded by nature, two souls intertwined on a journey toward something new and beautiful. As they made their way back to the cabin hand in hand, Elena felt lighter than ever before, a sense of hope blossoming within her heart as she realized this was only the beginning of their story together.